So here are 14 alpha male practices that fuck your testosterone. And most of these are often glorified, but they silently sabotage your testosterone, androgen receptor function, and rob your overall vitality. So instead of turning you into a gigachat, you actually become a weak average male with low testosterone. Now, first one is the daily cold plunge. So basically, doing a cold plunge every morning sounds amazing, right? This has been pushed by so many influencers as the golden thing for getting high testosterone, optimizing your hormones, losing fat, gaining muscle. But quite frankly, it actually suppresses luteinizing hormone and delays your recovery. It lowers your core temperature and it dampens your metabolic rate and thyroid function, meaning that you won't actually lose fat quicker, you'll build less muscle, and it is actually a stressor. So, not a stress relief. So, whenever you jump into a cold plunge straight first thing in the morning, your cortisol spikes immediately, right? So it dampens your resilience and it can actually lower your cortisol tolerance. Now, when you're doing an ice plunge, it can be good, right? But not if you're looking to raise testosterone and have stable energy every day. Because a cold plunge is very good to train your discipline. So if you haven't done any hard tasks, it is good to do a cold plunge. But if you're looking to get high testosterone, high energy, build a lot of muscle, doing a cold plunge first thing in the morning is suboptimal and basically backfires. Now, two, hybrid training. And I don't think you can get around this hype because we're seeing this everywhere. Everyone doing the high rocks, running, working out twice a day, Spartan runs, you name it. People are basically working out 2-3 times per day and they are preaching it as the key for masculinity. But in reality, it leads to elevated cortisol, suppressed anabolic response. And what the science actually tells us is that excess endurance training increases AMPK activity, which is directly opposes mTOR. And in science, this is basically the pathway which your muscle growth actually uses, right? So, due to all of this increased stress and the suppressed anabolic response, your testosterone is basically getting tanked. So you get lower testosterone, and the utilization of your testosterone decreases. So your body actually uses testosterone worse, right? So overall, you're basically chronic cardio uh, destroys your muscles, right? So it's also very logical because your body is very adaptive. And when you're basically doing excessive cardio, your body is basically trying to get rid of your muscles because when you're running, when you're doing cardio, right, muscles are very expensive. That's why if you, for example, look at marathon runners versus sprinters, marathon runners are often very, very lean, right? They have almost barely no muscle, and sprinters, on the other hand, they are very muscular, right? So that's basically so unless you're a professional hybrid athlete, right? If this is your job, you can probably do this, right? But if you're just as everyone else, you're working, you're in a relationship, you're in a family, right? Doing this type of approach will basically tank your testosterone and will have you worse off, right? It will raise your SHPG, which will reduce your free testosterone. And we did not even talk about the mental cost, right? So you're constantly fatigued, you have low recovery because if you are a natural, so if you're not using any crazy peptides, you're not using steroids whatsoever, you need to recover a lot, right? So if you're training twice a day, your body just does not have the time to recover. Your motivation will tank, your drive will tank because you just can't adhere to this, right? This brings you so much stress, and stress directly downregulates testosterone production. And combining that with the fact that inherently this uh, suppresses anabolic response, reduces this mTOR, right? It's basically a the worst thing you can do if you're looking to optimize your testosterone. Now, moving on to three, OMAD diet and warrior diet. So this one has become popular among the alpha scene. So basically, the idea is that warriors basically go hunting and then have like one meal a day, right? And that is somehow like optimal, right? But what it actually leads to is, specifically if you're looking to get high testosterone, right? Um, it leads to hormonal stagnation and elevated cortisol levels. Because if you were a nomad, right? If you were working in tribes, like say you're hunting every day, you probably wouldn't have the highest testosterone, right? So if we look at science, if we look at how OMAD actually affects our body, we can see that this extended fasting windows, which are exactly that, they disrupt ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, and testosterone signaling and elevate stress hormones. So obviously, if stress is high, if ghrelin is higher, so you're basically getting very hungry, right? And if you're hungry but you're not feeding yourself, your stress increases, and then therefore your testosterone signaling is going to be decreased, right? Also, a lack of amino acids throughout the day reduces muscle protein synthesis. You're losing muscles, right? It reduces luteinizing hormone pulsatility and blunts testosterone synthesis, because luteinizing hormone is basically the hormone your brain secretes to produce testosterone in your testes, right? So because of this OMAD diet, your body is in a state of survival, right? And when your body is in a state of survival, it won't produce testosterone, because testosterone is a sex hormone, right? And sex hormones are produced when your body feels safe. And when you're doing OMAD diets, warrior diets, your body just doesn't feel safe, right? So this actually backfires, and it can lead to mood instability, poor libido, and increased food anxiety. Now, four, this one is very, very common in the alpha male hemisphere, right? The monk mode, total isolation, going totally crazy, like doing absolutely 16 hours of work per day, locking yourself in a room and just not leaving it until you're successful. And this shouldn't be a surprise, but doing a monk mode just is terrible for your testosterone, because you're basically losing any social cues that stimulate testosterone. Because maybe you've guessed it, and that's why so many people are horny in the summer, is when you're seeing girls, your testosterone actually increases. So when you're seeing pretty girls, your testosterone gets higher. But if you're not surrounding yourself with other humans and other girls, right? Your testosterone has no reason to be high, because you have to understand testosterone is a sex hormone. And if you're not providing your body with cues like hemisphere of girls, right? Your body has no reason to produce testosterone, because there's basically no option for you to make babies, right? So what does the science actually tell us is, when there is social dominance, so when you're surrounding with girls, when there's a lot of competition, when there is healthy sex drive, all of these stimulate androgen response, so how your body actually uses testosterone, right? So it is good to be competitive, it is good to surround yourself with other girls, with other guys, like be in social areas, be in social events, right? Because that is amazing. And if you isolate yourself, right, it reduces your dopamine sensitivity, and it reduces your testosterone. Because, and we're not even talking about the mental cost, because monk mode obviously comes hand in hand with feeling lonely. It can come hand in hand with a lack of purpose, because you're just grinding for the sake of grinding, right? So if you're not strict about it, if you're not say, okay, I'm just going to do this for 2 months and then I'm going to, let's say, yeah, reintegrate myself with the social stuff, it can feel endless. And there's basically no hormonal trigger for masculine drive. So if you're looking to get high testosterone, monk mode isn't it, right? Now, five, biohacking obsession. Now, we all know these guys. I think this is Dave Asprey, which is like a very popular biohacker. This is Brian Johnson, who spends millions of euros on being the longest living human being, but quite frankly, he looks like a zombie, right? So I'm not sure if this is something you want to become. But this is a very common issue nowadays, that a lot of entrepreneurs, high performers, are looking to biohack their way to optimal productivity, optimal focus, optimal health. Like, a lot of people are focusing specifically on, okay, what if I eat my meals exactly at one, or what if I take this supplement and do this routine and whatever, right? So what this basically leads to is mental burnout and diminishing returns. So the science actually shows that if you're doing red light, or like you're doing these biohacking practices like Brian Johnson is doing, right? For example, red light therapy, endless supplements, you can even say about, let's say, grounding for like 5 minutes. All of these things are like very marginal gains, and it can create paradoxical stress. So since you're essentially looking for what, let's say, you're taking NAD, which supposedly helps your mitochondria, right? If you are constantly looking at these small, very small improvements, which in total, if you had to make a pyramid about what actually helps you in optimizing your health, supplements and this biohack stuff make up maybe like 5%. And that's a lot, right? So they make up 5% of the total of when you're trying to look to optimize your health, right? So over optimization, they increase your sympathetic tone, which elevates cortisol and it promotes gut dysfunction. So when you're so strictly optimizing, when you're so hyper focused on biohacking your way to health, it can actually backfire. It can feel like a lot, so you burn out, and it's quite frankly just not worth it. So you can see a lot in these biohacking guys that it leads to anxiety, compulsiveness, and health perfectionism, which then actually backfire. So they kind of they create this prison for themselves where they have to adhere to a perfect routine, because otherwise they get, oh, otherwise my testosterone tanks, or like my health will deteriorate, right? And by actually believing this, by actually living such a prisoned lifestyle of optimization, um, you are ruining your own health. You know, for example, this let's say you think about your uncle, right? This Italian uncle who is smoking, drinking every day, but is actually living a very chill life, not having a single worry on his mind. This dude is most probably more healthy, has a better life than these guys do. And even though maybe their blood markers look better, their life is so locked in, right? They're so guarded by everything else. They are so hyper focused on optimization, which in reality only is like 5%, maybe less than the total optimization. That this just creates a backfire, right? It's like backfire. So if you're looking to get high testosterone, always focus on the 80% that gives you, like the 20% that gives you 80% of the results. And doing endless supplements, red light therapy, all that stuff, it ain't it, right? So 6, stimulant overuse. Now this obviously shouldn't come as a surprise, but if you're relying on boatloads of coffee, if you're pushing yourself in gym, taking pre-workouts or any stimulant for that matter, right? So let's say for coffee, 3 is like the absolute maximum. Don't drink coffee after 3. But what it leads to is that you are exhausting your adrenal output and you're desensitizing your dopamine. Now, why is this important for high testosterone? So I have been working with a lot of clients, and some of these clients are already eating clean, right? They have already have the basis, they are disciplined, they are motivated to get their shit going, but their body just isn't producing testosterone. And testosterone isn't always about having the right nutrients like present, right? It's the production of your testosterone actually starts in your brains with something called the HPA axis, the hypothalamus, the pituitary glands, and the adrenal glands, right? And if your brain does not send these signals to your testes to produce testosterone, you won't have high testosterone. And a big issue with some of my clients actually is that their adrenal output and their dopamine is fried. And the reason that this can be caused is by an overuse of stimulants such as coffee, for that matter, like just drinking 5, 7, 5, 6, 7, 8 cups of coffee, waking up, boom, drinking coffee immediately because I want to be productive, I want to feel on, right? So they're basically elevating their cortisol, right? So they don't even get the effect of the caffeine, they get the effect of the cortisol, because our body is amazing, right? And most of the times when your adrenal output and your dopamine is exhausted, your body runs on cortisol, stress. Now, pairing this with caffeine, it raises again this your cortisol, it aids your catecholamines, which are like some let's say if you have proteins, you break that down and you have amino acids, right? So these are like some small amino acid. It then downregulates dopamine receptors and impairs REM sleep. So all of this is like terrible for your testosterone because your adrenal output is terrible. Your dopamine is desensitized. It impairs your REM sleep. So almost every part of the testosterone production here is impaired, right? And the mental costs here are that you're more likely to get agitated, you're more dependent on caffeine to feel productive, and there's more emotional reactivity. So you have seen this a lot of people that they just claim that, oh, I need my coffee to function. This is actually a very big sign of adrenal fatigue, desensitized dopamine receptors, right? So if you want high testosterone, don't overuse stimulants. Then seven, now this shouldn't come as a surprise as well, sleep deprivation, and specifically in the alpha male group, this hustle culture is a very big thing. Like you don't need to sleep, you only need to work. Like hustle harder, sleep. Like you need to grind now. And a lot of these alpha males they preach that you don't need to sleep 8 hours, you need to sleep 6 hours. And they even claim that, for example, that they feel more energized sleeping six opposed to sleeping eight. But you can maybe already guess it because I have been talking about this a lot in this video already. Is why do you think that they feel more energized on six than eight? Why do you think that it is? It is stress. So their body runs on stress. Their body is like probably dependent on caffeine or some other nootropics, right? So their body is essentially running on stress. And if they sleep longer than 8 hours, their body recovers because during sleep, your body processes all the emotions, all the things you've been doing during the day. And if you haven't done this for a long, 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 long time, and then you're finally sleeping 8 hours, your body is finally processing stuff at night, right? So that's why, let's say the first 1, 2, 3 days, you can wake up groggy if you finally sleep properly after like years, because that's most commonly the issue. I had this issue too. A lot of my clients have this issue. They have been sleeping for 6 hours for years, and then they think that that's normal. They function on 6 hours, but no, they don't function on 6 hours. Their body just shifted from feeling energized to now running on stress. And down the line, if you want to create high testosterone sustainably, so not just burn yourself out, right? Running on cortisol, running on stress is the worst thing you can do. Now, if you look at the specific effect on testosterone, so even a couple of nights of bad sleep can drop your testosterone by 50% because testosterone is produced during deep sleep. So, right, even 1 week of 5 hour nights can drop testosterone by 10 to 15%. And since most of these hustle people have been doing this for years, up to months, it is very likely that their testosterone is absolutely tanked and below, let's say, 400 nanograms per deciliter. So, chronic deprivation increases SHBG, which also lowers free testosterone. So, this is like a double trouble. So, and your total testosterone is going to be like, and also your free testosterone is going to be lower. So this is like the worst thing ever. And we're not even talking about the mental costs, which are brain fog, low mood, and poor decision making, which are probably countered with more stimulant use, so which fucks it up even more, right? So it's like a very negative loop. Now, one thing you see very often in the alpha male scene, see a lot of these testosterone guys promoting, is that they are lean year round. And being lean year round isn't optimal whatsoever if you're chasing high testosterone. Actually, being lean isn't optimal at all, right? So, fat in our body is actually a organ which is useful for storing minerals, vitamins, all that type of stuff, right? So, fat is an organ. So if you have no fat on your body has no means to store vitamins, minerals, etc. Right? So basically, if you look at the humans, we have evolved for hundreds, thousands of years using seasons. So my real name is actually Björn, which means bear. And if you look at bears, they hibernate in winter. Why do bears, a lot of animals, actually hibernate in winter? Because in winter food is very very scarce, right? But nowadays we have access to the entire world of fruits, vegetables, year round. So we kind of lost this dependence on nature, right? Now this enables us to be lean year round. But naturally, normally speaking, now, for example, in summer, in spring, in summer, late summer, fruit and vegetables were abundant. So if you look at almost all animals which are alive, right, what are they doing in when these times when fruit, vegetables are very abundant? They fucking feast. They eat as much as possible and they get a lot of fat, right? They try to get as fat as possible. And why do they want to be as fat as possible? Because when winter comes, that fruit, that vegetable just isn't there. Like people can only eat meat probably and maybe some root vegetables, some carbs, potatoes, right? But food is very scarce and there's only meat. So obviously I've been seeing this carnivore stuff where people saying that yeah, you can be lean year round doing carnivore, which is right, but inherently fruit and vegetables or carbs aren't bad. It's like our natural cycle. So if you stay lean year round, right? If you're not following nature's cycles of, let's say, getting more fat in summer than in winter, right? You will have chronically low luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormones. So these follicle stimulating hormones is for sperm, luteinizing is for testosterone, right? And the science tells us that low body fat reduces leptin, which is the fullness hormone. So when you're eating, eventually leptin rises, and then you're not hungry anymore. It reduces nutrient signaling and lowering testosterone. So this basically indicates that our liver is less able to use nutrients to, for example, let's say, pack that in cholesterol. And cholesterol is important for testosterone. So your liver keeps these nutrients more because it kind of assumes that it's winter, right? And in winter, your body needs these nutrients for energy metabolism, not testosterone production. So it also reduces insulin and IGF, which is an important growth factor for like androgen receptors, which in turn helps us build muscle and utilize testosterone, right? So what it basically leads to is that you're going to be having low libido, you're going to be having mood swings, reduced motivation, and again, being lean year round just isn't optimal. So best thing if you want high testosterone is having 12% or more body fat, between 12 and 15%. Actually, like you can be lean, but this is just more for your ego, right? I understand you want to see those six pack abs, but if you actually want the highest amount of testosterone, being lean isn't optimal at all. So, 9, ice baths after training. So, this is pretty new research, but again, this is also a very big hype nowadays. Last few years, this has been a massive hype. But research has been showing that if you're doing an ice bath after training, you actually reduce muscle protein synthesis. So, your body actually reduces the production of muscles, so it kind of backfires. So even though for your discipline this can feel amazing, for you can get like a high, like you can get these endorphins released, so it can feel amazing. But if you're looking to optimize testosterone, if you're looking to maximize your gains, doing a ice bath after training isn't optimal, right? So if you're doing it for discipline, for like testing your mental resilience, that's a different story, right? But if you're looking to maximize testosterone and maximize your gains, doing an ice bath isn't optimal. So I should just, if you're looking to optimize your discipline, your mental resilience, just do it, let's say, once or twice a week, outside the context of working out. Now, moving on to 10, bro splits. So obviously, if you're looking online, This is basically the typical bro split, right? Monday chest day, Tuesday back, then Wednesday shoulders, arm day, Friday leg day, right? And I don't know who needs to tell you this, who needs to hear this, but if you're looking to maximize testosterone, maximize androgen receptor sensitivity, which are the receptors that use your testosterone, this is just stupid, right? First of all, these are mostly probably going to be isolation workouts, which targets then very specific small muscle groups. And if you want to maximize testosterone, maximize the utilization of testosterone, doing isolation exercises and specifically in the gym alone and 5 days a week isn't optimal, right? So if you're a natural, training 5 days a week is the absolute upper limit, right? I would suggest that 4 times is the max, and I'm not even doing these things. So these workouts kind of backfire. First of all, you are training too often. So you're not letting your body actually properly rest. And secondly, these isolation exercises, they don't stimulate maximum testosterone production. So you're going to be stuck with very mediocre results. Now, what does it actually show us? That this bro science stimulates less testosterone production, less testosterone stimulation, right? So if you want to maximize the testosterone stimulation, you want to focus on compound lifts with heavy load. Specifically, and if you're following the Apex method, it's a method which I use with my clients, you want to do weighted calisthenics, which is basically the best form of compound movements you can do, which stimulate the largest energy spikes, and the isolation stuff just doesn't do that, right? So if you're combining calisthenics with weights, you're both training your central nervous system, you're activating most muscles because it's essentially a full body workout, right? And if you pair that with high intensity, for example, or some fight sports to drive that competition, because men inherently need to be competitive, bro, then you're going to make massive gains. So if you're just going to be sticking to this 5 day bro split, you're just going to have to accept that you're never going to make significant gains. You're just going to have slow progress. And at the end of the day, you'll just feel lost and you won't be fulfilled with what you're getting out of all the things you're putting into, right? So you're doing a lot of stuff, you're putting in a lot of effort, but your results are just going to be very mediocre. Now, do this, bro. I have been seeing this now for so many times. So many people jumping on a hype because, yes, it's a hype. People are showing you online these wooden cardboard steaks, right? They are eating two steaks per day and just making it seem that this is the best thing ever for your health, for your testosterone. When you want optimal health, eat 2 steaks per day. But quite frankly, it just robs you of your money and it kind of backfires as well. So don't get me wrong, steak is the very good source of nutrients. It's very rich, so I am eating steak as well. But twice a day is just doing too much. It's not necessary whatsoever. There are other types of foods as well. So what this basically can lead to is something not I call, something which is called functional iron overload. And what this basically means is that you're eating so much iron, right? And we as men, we don't bleed. So we don't get rid of iron. Our body doesn't get rid of it, right? So we have an excess intake of heme iron, which can elevate ferritin, specifically ferritin storage, which can increase oxidative stress. So you don't have actual iron overload. So you have to see the difference here. You don't have actual iron overload. You have a functional iron overload, which can be seen in, for example, blood test by elevated serum ferritin levels. So this in return leads to an increased oxidative stress, right? And if you couple this with most of these guys are always doing, with being lean year round, not eating a lot of fiber or poor gut health. So for example, I know this guy called Nathan Sages. He talked about whenever he eats bread, for example, or let's say some carbs, he immediately gets bloated. And this is a telltale sign of having, for example, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or underlying gut issues, right? So if you have those things, which most of these creators do, because they always make videos about, oh, every time I eat this fruit, my skin flares up, or if I eat this vegetable, fuck, my gut health is off. That's a telltale sign of having poor gut health. that leads to inflammation, high SHBG, and if you have high SPG, your free testosterone is going to be low. And a funny part is actually, this is a thing you have to watch out for, is having iron, high ferritin levels in your blood can elevate testosterone. Why? Because if your testosterone is higher, right, your body downregulates the absorption of iron. But this is a wrong um, interpretation of the results. So on your blood test, you would, for example, then see that you would have 1400 nanograms per deciliter testosterone. So you have the idea that your testosterone is very high, but it's an effect of your body to downregulate iron absorption. And since the fact that your SHBG is very high as well, your body is trying to get baseline testosterone. So your free testosterone is very low, and your body has baseline need for free testosterone. So since SHBG is constantly climbing, your body needs to produce more testosterone to get the same level of free testosterone. So you have very high testosterone on your blood test, but the actual testosterone your body can use is probably very low. So this can basically lead to fatigue, irritability, and just less hormonal clarity. Now, 12, and we already talked about this shortly, but all of these alpha guys, they fear vegetables. They somehow think that it's just pretty beta, pretty average. Like who wants to eat vegetables? Do you want to be a soy boy? Vegetables are bad for you. This and that, right? They're just scared of vegetables, which apparently hunter gatherers did not eat vegetables whatsoever, right? They only eat steaks twice a day. So vegetables are bad, and that's it. Now, what I already just told you, most of these influencers have incredibly poor gut health and liver detox, right? So cruciferous vegetables and root vegetables, which are my favorite. So think about potatoes, sweet potatoes, parsnip, carrots. They actually aid with estrogen metabolism and gut balance. So, for example, nowadays we can't get around this anymore. There are a lot of environmental pollutants in the air, in water, in food, microplastics, BPA, phthalates, you name it. There are a lot of environmental pollutants and toxins, right? And our body has natural detox pathways, such as our liver, which is basically filtering our blood, our kidneys through urine, and our feces, so our gut, right? And cruciferous vegetables and fiber, for example, they help with removing these toxins. So if you don't support your liver health, if you don't support your gut health, if you don't support these detox pathways, these toxins are going to be absorbed in your tissue, are going to be um, basically, yeah, getting into your blood again, right? Which often leads to poor methylation, gut dysbiosis, and toxin buildup. And over time, this can lead to paranoia, rigidity, and poor digestion. So paranoia, this is like the perfect thing you saw with Liver King, right? So he's eating a lot of meat, and he basically just went totally crazy. And this poor digestion stuff, just look online. Just go to any influencer who promotes like testosterone, right? And just see how afraid they are of vegetables. There are so many out there. They just want to go any basic carnivore, basically afraid of vegetable because they think, oh, it's going to kill me or something. And they always make these videos about, okay, I tried honey for a while. I tried to eat fruits again, and then I felt terrible. So obviously, feeling terrible isn't a sign that the fruit inherently is bad. It's a sign that your gut is basically cooked, right? Now, 13, micromanaging food. And this is basically goes hand in hand with the biohacking stuff. So when you are micromanaging food, you're weighing everything. You are looking for the perfect blueberry, the best piece of fruit, the best vegetable, the best piece of this or that to optimize your testosterone, right? To get the best shape of your life. Actually, thinking about food in this way just destroys your testosterone. You think that the Spartans, the Vikings, those Mongolians, right, who have high testosterone, they are looking for this very small specific berry which seemed to boost testosterone 25% in a rat study. No, They don't do it whatsoever. Like, if you look at the healthiest people on earth, if you look at people who naturally have high testosterone, right? And I'm not talking about people in a Western society, but I'm talking about people in more natural societies, right? So the Amazonians, people in Africa, like those nomads, right? So what do they have, right? Are they weighing their food? No. What they have is basically they eat what the land provides, and they eat and they feast, right? So they basically eat with the seasons. So they eat food, specifically fruit or vegetables, when they are in season, because when fruit and vegetable are in season, they are the most nutrient dense. They contain the most nutrients, and it doesn't really matter if you eat this specific papaya from Indonesia or this dragon fruit from whatever, right? Like, it doesn't matter. If you just eat what's available and just try to eat as much of it as possible, assuming it's whole foods, right? So you can feast every once in a while. That's just the best thing for our body. Our bodies evolved for thousands of years following natural seasons, and we did not have access to blueberries from New Zealand or papayas from Costa Rica or whatever, right? So if you think about food in this micromanaging way, this will just basically disrupt your hormonal flow. And science just shows us that if you're over tracking, it suppresses natural hunger cues and disrupts your dopamine ghrelin signaling. And you're basically creating constant stress about food, which elevates your cortisol and just lowers your testosterone, right? And the mental costs are numerous. So, for example, orthorexia, which is basically that people are getting stressed if they do not have the perfect meal for themselves. They're getting anxiety, and they, quite frankly, they're just teaching themselves disordered eating. So, if you just live a more natural lifestyle, you don't need to micromanage your food. Like, follow the seasons, eat naturally, eat abundantly, and then you don't have to worry, right? So if you're chasing high testosterone, if you're chasing optimal health, look at the healthiest people on earth. Look at what people are doing in the Mediterranean. For example, they're eating with the seasons, they're eating what the land provides, right? And they're not weighing, okay, I can only eat half a lemon today because then I have blah, blah, blah. Don't micromanage your food. And then lastly, this is the most important thing, and this is because we are living in a modern technological society right now, is people are wanting to micromanage every part of their life. They're tracking their life like it's a spreadsheet. They're having all of these wearables to monitor their blood flow, their steps, how they sleep, right? They're tracking every aspect of their day, thinking that this somehow will help them optimize their health. And yes, these stuff can give you insights, right? For example, the Aura Ring or a Whoop. This stuff can give you insight in that your sleep quality maybe sucks, right? But if you're using this for a very long period of time, it kind of essentially does it loses its functionality. Because if you dial in your sleep quality, what's the point of let's say having a 95% or 100% or 93%? Like, they just give you diminishing returns, and it basically overactivates your prefrontal cortex and stress response. So it's kind of the same as here. If you are too aware of everything in your life, you are constantly on. And when you're constantly on, your body has no time to actually rest, right? So hyper control raises baseline cortisol. It reduces spontaneous dopamine release because everything in your life is so flipping controlled, right? And it suppresses testosterone via oversympathetic activation. So, in the long term, this will basically lead to burnout, fatigue, and emotional numbness because you're just tracking every part of your life. You're taking the spontaneity out of your life, and you're basically turning yourself in a robot. So, these wearables can maybe give you some insight in where in your life improvements can be made. That's why we are doing, for example, blood tests with our clients as well, because then we know exactly what's going wrong. But after that, after we have identified the hurdles, you can just get rid of these wearables, right? Because you don't need it. No one needed 100 years ago. We didn't need these wearables to know we're healthy, right? So y'all don't need it too. So you kind of have to understand that these 14 things, they kind of tank your testosterone, right? And the tragedy is that most men today are building their kingdom on just quicksand. So they're cool plunging at dawn, training like Spartans, like they are doing 2 workouts per day. They're fasting like monks. But the hormonal foundation, the testosterone, beneath all of that, it's just absolutely cracked. It's tanked, right? So imagine trying to build a fortress, your business, your physique, your discipline, but the soil underneath is just non-existent. There's no soil, right? So that's basically what happens when your testosterone is tanked. Your drive vanishes, your energy plateaus, your progress collapses under pressure, right? And this isn't about effort. It's about architecture. And most guys are unknowingly reinforcing broken structures. All of these things are look good. They are these alpha male practices to raise your testosterone. They sound good. They look cool, right, on social media, but they are silently robbing your health and your testosterone. And ask yourself this honestly: are you just chasing more cold showers and caffeine when what you really need is to stop bleeding testosterone through stress? Because all of these habits just add extra stress to your routine, while you just need less. You need less stress, right? Because you are just overstimulated and you are micromanaging every aspect of your life, right? So if you have been stacking another routine on a nervous system that's already screaming for relief, because you don't need another hack. You need a biology first blueprint, one that just doesn't make you overstimulated, one that makes you feel like a man, makes you feel like you're in control, right? In real control, not this micromanaging stuff. And it just actually supports your hormones in a way that it can be optimized, right? And this entire breakdown is the opposite of hype, right? So what I'm trying to show you is it's not about shortcuts. If you want to optimize your testosterone, if you want to get high testosterone so you can basically live the best life ever, because I can guarantee you that if your testosterone is high, your gains are going to be like you're going to make so much gains. Your energy is going to be sky high. You're going to be driven. You're going to be confident. You're going to be assertive. You're going to be more decisive, right? It's the best thing ever, right? But it's about getting honest about what's killing your edge and rebuilding your edge from the ground up. Because if you're continuously looking for these quick hacks, these things which look good but don't actually support your testosterone, you're just always going to be stuck, right? So if you don't want to feel stuck, if you don't want to feel tired anymore, if you don't want to feel like you're running your life on 50%, right? DM me key or book a call below and we'll have a look at how we can actually get your T high so you can finally shed fat, get abs, and keep them in the long run, because that's the most important stuff. No fluffy stuff, no hype stuff, no hacks, just biology packed clarity to reclaim your fire, right? So you have probably done the hard things. Now it's just time for you to do the right things. Ciao.